Hello Internet and welcome to Historical Headlines for the 12th of December. Now, the historical headline for today is Battle at Tolvajärvi. Finnish troops annihilate Soviet rifle division. And, of course, you can therefore guess that we are back in the Winter War. A couple of weeks ago I talked about the beginning of the Winter War between the Soviet Union and Finland in the winter of 1939 and 1940. And I mentioned that despite in the end basically losing, the Finns today consider it almost a national victory, and that I can agree with them considering the fact that they held off the Soviet Union of the 1940s with basically less than a seventh of their manpower, none of their air force, and on pure grit and badass attitude. And that is why we today are going to be talking about the Battle of Tolvajärvi, or however you pronounce that. And again, I have already gotten a call from my Finnish friend Annie, eviscerating me over my pronunciation of Finnish names, so I'm sure she's going to do it again. Something in the style of, "You already have someone who speaks Finnish. Why are you not calling me to ask me for pronunciation guides?" And my answer to that is because that would mean that it wouldn't be as fun to hear from her. But anyway, the Battle of Tolvajärvi is a pretty good example of why the Finns were able to hold back the Soviets for so very long. It took advantage of their knowledge of the localized area as well as their adaptation to the cold. Not even the Soviets were as cold and winter adapted as the Finnish proved to be. In fact, I would probably have assumed that if the Finns have had enough people, they could probably have done what the Germans failed to do, and in fact have beaten the Soviet Union in a winter war on Soviet territory. However, the battle specific. The Soviet had invaded Finland over a very wide front, but with the main thrust in Karelia, and they were advancing basically without too much due care and attention because they knew of their immense numerical superiority, and probably also because Stalin's purges at this time had not really been made up for with the later influx of combat experienced soldiers towards the middle of the Second World War. So, as the Soviets were advancing, the Finns could have done two things. They could have sat back and say, "We will defend our fixed positions and hope to hold them for as long as possible," which is the military conservative wisdom for what you should do when you are heavily outnumbered. That is not for the Finns. Instead, they said, "We are going to counterattack and take advantage of the fact that the Soviets doesn't actually seem to know what they're currently doing." So it was said, so it was done. The Soviets were advancing with an entire division, the 139th, over the iced-up Tolvajärvi Lake, and the Finns were opposing them with about 4,000 men of a single regiment with a couple of detached, or attached rather, battalions. But the Finns had no intention of waiting for the Soviet 5-1 manpower advantage to come to them. Instead, they planned a pincer maneuver counterattack. Yes, military strategist, you heard it correctly. A under-equipped force, less than 5 times as strong as the attackers, attempted a pincer maneuvering counterattack. And more than that, it was successful. It took most of the day on the 12th of December to actually gain any headway. Of course, every Finn had to basically kill almost 5 Russians in order to make any kind of success. But at the end of the day, they had succeeded. The Russian 139th Division had been thrown back with the loss of about 4,000 to 5,000 men, almost the exact same thing as the entire Finnish defense force, and the loss of practically all of its mechanized supply vehicles, while the Finns had lost only about anywhere between 200 and 300 troops, wounded or death. The Finns forced the 139th Soviet Division further south, and later in the month completely annihilated it in another surrounding maneuver, which is, again, something that the Finns would use quite a bit on that particular part of the war. You would think the Soviets would learn, but apparently they never did. But yes, the Battle of Tolvajärvi, where 4,000 Finns annihilated 20,000 advancing Russians in what was the first great victory of the Winter War, and was a warning to the Soviets that this was not going to be as easy as March to to Helsinki as they had probably imagined. That was the historical headline for today, the 12th of December. The Finn army annihilates Soviet division at Tolvajärvi. Until next time, which will be tomorrow with another historical headline, I have been the Sage, and I wish you all a very happy day.